ready.
Okay.
Well, I want to say welcome again to Pittsburgh. You've been here many times.
Yeah.
How's the family?
They're fine. They're fine.
Please give my regards to your wife, Amina,
Okay.
when you get back home. You know, I served on Pittsburgh City Council for 11 years.
Yeah, I know.
And we were just talking about little Ross Joy, who's not so little
That's your old
anymore. Your son, who is both a public school principal and was deputy mayor in Newark, and now has recently been re-elected to city council. I know you must be proud of Ross.
Yeah, very much so.
Tell us a little bit about Ross's entry into the politics of Newark, how it was an extension of the politics of that we started way back.
Yeah, well, even when we were in an organization together, we used to take them to places, you know, all these political things, including my son, Ahi, who was very little at the time.
Is that Ahi?
See, so we always carried them with us everywhere,
Yes,
and
right.
all those rallies and stuff. And you know, Raz just apparently was drawn to that, you know, and picked it up. He and also other son, Amiri Jr. They were into some political organization when they were in high school. As a matter of fact, they organized all the students to walk out of the schools because there was no black studies.
Right.
See, so it was, you know, it was a long journey actually to where he finally got to be the deputy mayor under Sharp James for 4 years with $1 a year.
Yeah.
Now they're paying the deputy mayors $176,000 a year.
He was a little late, a little early.
Yeah, well, this is another kind of regime that we have now, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's, you know, it's been a long time coming. Then when Raz went to Howard, they shut down the school about this, what was this man's name? A Bush appointee who they were going to put on the board of trustees of Howard.
Right.
And so they shut the school down, you know, and I went down there, and the mayor picked me up, you know, the brother who was in SNCC, who's the mayor, he's still city councilman down there. They took me directly to the school, and the president of the time was so backward, he had called in the SWATs.
Called SWATs on the mayor.
No, he called in SWATs on them students. The students had locked up the administration building.
Yes.
You know, what they did is they went in there, then they pulled the fire alarm. Everybody ran out, then they locked the doors.
Right. Right.
So he called a SWAT on them. So I got on the phone and called the people I knew who had children there, you know, and it was quite a few well-known, you know, black people who had children there. I said, well, you know, they're getting ready to do something to your kids. Yeah. And he backed off that, you know, after a couple of days. He was in there a couple of days.
That's similar to the struggle we had at the University of Pittsburgh here, where we took over the computer center in the Cathedral of Learning and locked ourselves into the cathedral. At that time, computers were as big as refrigerators.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, right.
We had axes and hammers and were threatening to dismantle the computers, and it changed their tune. They became much more agreeable to have a conversation about black studies.
Yeah, no, but that's what I don't think these students now realize how important that was to do that.
Yes, yes.
Which is why I think that there's not as tight surveillance by the student body and the faculty over black studies as it gets diminished slowly. But what they did is after, things are always like this, after the militancy of really enforcing the initiation of this, then they start bringing in instructors who are not revolutionaries and who are simply faculty members who don't care what happens. That's what's happening all over the country.
And the whole initiation is forgotten. They don't know how they got there. They
have no idea.
They think that they're there because of their degrees and their brilliance.
Absolutely. And a lot of these Africans they bring in are, just content to be some kind of administrative pawns, know. But that comes from an era when we thought anything African was militant.
Right. We go back to a time when we brought a lot of young groups to Newark to see Spirit House. And of course, you've been widely known as the father and founder of the Black Arts Movement. I wonder how you would describe Black arts today. What do you see?
Well, see, that was we had started, organizing downtown in the village, trying to get some kind of black consciousness, because that was, the civil rights movement was unfolding.
Right.
But when Malcolm X got murdered, a lot of us, young writers and painters and whatever, moved out of the village up into Harlem. And I had a play downtown, so I was getting some kind of money. So we then rented a brownstone in Harlem and tore out the bottom floor. I don't know if the man knows today. And, set up a theater. And then we began to send trucks out into the street, 4 trucks a night, every night, with music and dance and poetry. And so it had a very strong effect on the people, because we thought that if we were supposed to be doing such profound, artistic things, that we need to bring that right into the neighborhood.
Right.
And what was interesting is my play Dutchman, which won Obie Award, Best Off-Broadway Play. When we brought it uptown, it became a racist play.
Yes. How so?
Well, because art in an abstract setting is one thing, but art where you're actually telling people to do things becomes dangerous. That's what Jean-Paul Sartre said. He said, as long as you say that something's wrong, but I don't know what, that's art. But you say something's wrong and I know exactly who's doing it. That's political protest. So we had to work with that and begin to understand that, But we wanted an art that was, number one, identifiably Afro-American, according to our history and roots and so forth. Secondly, we wanted an art that was not contained in these small venues. We wanted to come out and get into the street. That's why I was happy to see rap, because then you could hear people running stuff down, out in the street. And then third, we wanted an art that would help in the liberation of black people. That was what our view was. We didn't think that just writing a poem was sufficient. That poem, if it had to have some kind of utilitarian use, should help in liberating us, So that's what we did. We consciously did that. And we brought artists from all over, the area uptown, some of the great musicians at the time, and, like you bring Sun Ra, in the community, and where people were saying Sunrise 2 are out for the people thought it was dance music. They start dancing to it, you know, hey, but that's what it is. But that was a new kind of, and there's a picture on this book of mine, this new book of mine called Digging, of the front of the Black Arts. Mm-hmm. Just before we went out on the street, and I'm bringing this wine in, and at the top of the steps is Sun Ra. So we were getting ready to go out into the street with that. So right. it was very effective, and that particular trend spread across the country. The Black Arts Theaters opened in Milwaukee, Chicago, Atlanta.
How do you see black art today?
Well, we need to restore its purpose. You know, the thing that's disarming is the fact that you got an Afro-American presidential figure, and so that disarms a lot of people, even though they still suffer from the same ills. Right. I mean, you know, I mean, the same way you see that the Tea Party people pop up. Right. That after the Civil War, when the slaves thought they were free, then here come the Klan. It's the same thing. You didn't need the Klan when slavery was going on, right. See? But the minute you say you're no longer a slave, then we get right. the Klan, and you get black codes, you know. Yeah. So it's always a continuation of struggle. You cannot stop struggling because, you know, you got a black guy walking around saying some stuff. Anybody who could bomb Libya, for instance, that should be the cue in your mind that just because his skin is your color don't mean his brain is the same as yours. You know, and you're gonna bomb Libya, you're nuts. Mm-hmm. So it's always a continuous struggle to raise the level of social consciousness in the country. Right. Not only for black people, but for everybody who needs that change, you know.
Do you see black artists under the continued influence of black art to politicize their art?
Some, but see, you've got a whole wave of people who are influenced by this sort of post-struggle art, mm-hmm. who believe that simply to write a poem about themselves is sufficient, you know, yes. or their family or something like that. That's not what it is. See, the whole question of, for instance, art, Shakespeare. If you look at Shakespeare, everything Shakespeare wrote was against the rulers in that particular age. You know, whether you looked at Julius Caesar, it was about the relationship between government and the people, you know, or The Taming of the Shrew, which is about the oppression of women, you know what I mean, or you know, Hamlet about the, you know, the development of liberalism and how liberalism, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? You know, you're not going to do nothing, you're going to get killed. So that when you can understand that Shakespeare is about the elimination of that whole aristocratic class in that period, that all the things he talks about are things that we will have to deal with under capitalism. Mm-hmm. For the rest of our lives, mm-hmm. you understand? But that's not the way it's presented. See, it's presented as some kind of extra realistic, you know, mumbo jumbo in verse that puts people to sleep, and so they don't see the essence of what that is. Yeah. You know. Yeah. But that's what an artist, to me, that's what artists are supposed to do, is help to struggle for the advancement of human right. knowledge. Right. You know. Right.
There are, when we came to Newark, on many occasions, there were several Pittsburgh artists who were among us, who were influenced by what they learned and experienced at Spirit House. And they are revered here in Pittsburgh.
Rob Penny one.
Rob Penny, and I wanted to name them and get you to reflect briefly on their work, beginning
August
with
Wilson.
Rob Penny. And Rob Penny, August Wilson, of course, Ed Roberson, yeah. Poet, John Edgar Wideman.
Yeah.
Start with Rob Penny.
Well, Rob actually was the most activist-oriented
Yeah.
of them in terms of the literature. He actually wanted to do the things that we were talking about, to use the art to advance, black life, human consciousness. August, when I met August was a poet,
Right.
and we talked about poetry. I didn't know that he wrote, well, he didn't write plays then.
Only later. Right?
Yeah, he began to write plays later.
Yeah.
And that's why he always made reference to me, because he was a young poet and, talking to me about poetry. And I thought that was a miraculous kind of development. I remember the first time his play came to New York. My wife and Toni Morrison went to see it. I was teaching
Which one,
at school.
Rainey?
Yeah, I was teaching at Stony Brook, and I couldn't get there until after the play was over. They were telling me about it. But August had a great influence on theater, and I was. See, people don't know August Wilson's evolution was important. He wanted to know first why I wasn't a beatnik anymore. That was our. Next thing I knew about him, he had become a Muslim, and joined the Nation of Islam, which he stayed for about that long. I think he and Sonia Sanchez got in the Nation of Islam about the same time and stayed for about the same time, 30 minutes.
Right. Right.
And then they were, doing something else. Ed Robeson, I still know. He worked at Rutgers for a long time.
Yeah, you all were there around the same time?
Right, we were there at the same time. I was, teaching, and he had administrative kind of a job. But he was writing poetry. He's still writing poetry.
Nathaniel Mackey refers both to you as an early influence and to Ed Roberson. He talks about him and includes him in some of his anthology work.
Yeah, well, Ed's poetry is a very kind of fine, profound kind of poetry, and it's interesting to me. John Edgar Whiteman, we've had some discussions that I really don't want to credit as his whole being, but we've had some. We had a discussion about whether or not one should teach the great, icons of Afro-American literature. And my line is, you mean you wouldn't teach Fred Douglass? You wouldn't teach Du Bois? I don't understand that. Then he changed that, because that's clearly impossible. If you're going to teach Black studies, you have to teach the great people that came.
Right. Right.
But those people, we had I think, a great kind of learning from each other experience all together. All of those folks, and I was very proud actually that of Rob and August. How much they did do, and Rob came to Newark a few times.
Yes.
I saw him.
Yeah.
I was telling my son about when we were in the organization, and we were having the second Gary convention, and we sent Sala Udin down to Little Rock.
To Little Rock.
And the man kidnapped him.
That's right.
Man kidnapped him, boy. That was some wild and woolly days.
That was scary.
But yeah, well, I guess it was.
I actually shot a bullet right past my head. That was scary.
I never understood what that Negro thought he was going to get. He thought that we was coming down here to
He
make
was
money.
taking over the bars and the clubs, and he was just going to make a bunch of money from the
convention.
We had a concert that we were going to be having, and he was trying to hijack the ticket sales from the concert. He was
Crazy person, man. I wonder what happened to him. I'm not really concerned about it.
he could not have survived.
No,
He's
he
got to be
doesn't.
dead.
No, I know. By the time we got down there, man, it was been really something bad if we hadn't seen him, you know.
Yes.
But I just thought that's like you talking about some nostalgia of a real turbulent
Yeah.
American life. Yeah.
As we look at the evolution of that political scene, come up to 2008, you put forward a compelling argument for progressives that the Barack Obama candidacy represented an opportunity for people to push forward the agenda for democratic rights and equality. And now more recently, you describe Obama as a yapping Negro who would take us back to slavery. I wonder if you would sum up Baraka's presidency.
The problem is this, that I have to support Obama because I remember the Republicans, I remember George Bush, and I see the ones they have lined up over there now, you know. But at the same time, he has to be criticized for the stuff that he's done. I mean, you don't bomb. I mean, what are you going to get by bombing Africa? I mean, you know, to take the oil away from Gaddafi, and Gaddafi as a leader is no worse than the ones you're close friends with.
Right.
So where is the logic of that? And he has not learned to struggle with those people like I hoped he would. You know, there's no way you're going to get anything done unless you're able to struggle with those long-time kind of lobbies.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even when he was first elected, we sent 10,000 newspapers to Denver saying, President Obama, no bailout, nationalize the insurance, nationalize the banks, nationalize the auto company. Because, and you know, I had forums and stuff, we talked about that. As a matter of fact, I talked to Harvard University, black Harvard University business majors. And you know, talking to them about that was like futile. I thought that it was the thing to do because it was an opportunity.
Right.
I mean, if you're running a business and you're making millions of dollars and then that business fails, why come to me who don't have no money? Why should I give you my money to keep you rich and I stay poor? That don't have any logic. There's no logic in that, you know. And so the only way I could justify that in my mind, why he did that, was that's his mindset. That he thought that above all, capitalism, you know, not just petty capitalism, but big time capitalism, imperialism, has to survive. You know, monopoly had to survive for this country to survive. And all these people calling Obama a socialist are just fools. You know, they obviously don't know what socialism is, you know. But I still thought it was a respite, but there so many times that he's been able to do things and then backed off, like that thing with Skip Gates about Skip getting busted.
Right.
He said it was stupid. That's efficient. It was stupid. You know, accept the heat.
Right.
You know, don't back off it. Yeah, it was a stupid move. You're gonna arrest the guy who's a Harvard University professor on his own doorstep. Now that's stupid, you know, and obviously racist.
Yeah.
You know, but to back away from that with some kind of let's go drink beer together, that's just not sufficient, you know. And that's what began to turn me to the other side of that, you know. Say, well, I got to support him to the extent I can, but at the same time I have to criticize him.
Absolutely.
You know,
there's going to be another struggle. I mean, the Tea Party is lining up for 2012, and there's a lot more close scrutiny of Obama and support on the one hand when he can be supported, but criticism on the other hand where it needs to be criticized. Going into the 2012 election, what should be the posture of progressives relative to that election?
Well, you know, the right is moving toward fascism. I don't care what they call it. You know, this whole business in Arizona. You know, the whole trading unemployment for, you know, refusing to tax the rich.
Right.
You know, in New Jersey, it's the same thing. He will not tax the rich, but we have all kind of budget cuts and things like that. That has to be fought, and he has to be held up as a bulwark against that. Otherwise, what are we doing? You know. But I think that it's important for us to fight the fringe, you know, the Tea Party, and to understand that a lot of the Republican and some Democrats, but a lot of the Republicans are nothing but the Klan in civilian clothes. They just took off those white robes. That's all. But they were all the way over there, and like I said, after the Civil War, didn't you get the Klan? See, you don't need the Klan while you got slavery.
Right.
So after Barack election, then you get the Tea Party. You know, it's the same thing. It's the Sisyphus syndrome. You know, you roll a rock, they don't roll it back down on your head. And like I said last night, there was a guy named George Romero who predicted the coming of the Tea Party. He had a film in the 60s called Night of the Living Dead.
There you go.
So, I mean, that's them again. There they come out of the ground. You know. But that's, and the irony about that is a lot of those people are struggling against their own interests.
They are.
Yeah, you know, they're struggling against their own interests. I mean, you know,
keep your hands off my Social Security. But don't touch my Social Security.
That's too
no
much.
Federal program.
But that's where we are now. We're in a rock and a hard place. I mean, I wrote essays during the campaign about the Weimar Republic, the dangers of Weimar, where the left splits up into pieces, see, and permits the right to grow. And that's what happened in Germany. You know, while the left was fighting, whether they were communists or socialists or, you know, workers, syndicalists, Hitler was building that, you know, and so you looked up and suddenly they had blown up the Reichstag, you know, which reminded me of 9/11.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they had banned the left from the Bundesstaat, from the whole parliamentary thing, and began to take hostages, you know, Jews, Gypsies, you know, whoever was opposed to that kind of fascism. But I don't see the difference between the media, big media, Murdoch media, you know, Fox. It's not that much different from what the Nazi media was. Everything to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. I mean, when you see people like, what's his name, the guy that they just Beck, for instance, I mean, or the rest of these guys, the right-wing group that they have. That's very scary because they don't represent anything but fascism.
Right.
You know?
Right. You called for, on several occasions, the formation of a representative assembly, a united front to organize black politics. How do you see that happening today? Today, there is nothing close to the kind of assembly that we put together with the National Black Political Assembly. How do you see that evolving?
Well, it's going to have to happen again. See, first of all, the only way we could go forward is in this country is that coalition, that united front that elected Obama. They're going to have to continue. You know, the blacks, the Latins, the Asians, and the progressive whites and that. They're going to have to maintain that motion. You know, because anything else, if that fragments, then we're going backwards, and that's the danger of Obama acting so backwards in terms of, because what he's doing is cutting off his own backers from him. You know, a lot of people now, man, you know, I was actually giving money to the campaign, but you know, I can't give money to somebody who's no bomb Africa. You know? I mean, you know, no, it's just, and to join with Great Britain and France, they just got kicked out of Africa last week. You know, that's the straight out colonial powers,
Right.
and they back at it. You know, I mean, you could never back Great Britain and France against Africa, you know, or any other powerless people, because that's what they do. That's what they do. They are bloodsuckers to the bone. That's why, you know, when you see these movies about vampires and stuff, why it's so popular, because they're talking about themselves, you know, they're talking about the nature of this economy, the nature of this society is to suck blood on defenseless people, you know, and that's what
But
they
rather
do.
than building a united front, many of the critics of Obama, especially so-called left critics, that they don't do anything as an alternative to the criticism. They exempt themselves from organizing people, and they think it's sufficient to stand on the sidelines and criticize.
That's what- that's what-
that.
Well, it's like, what's his name? Cornel West. Cornel. He's going to criticize, call Obama a white man in black skin. You know?
Right.
Well, this is a guy that taught at Harvard and Princeton. I don't know no black people teach at Harvard and Princeton. If you get in one of them, you're lucky. But I just wonder, you know, I was at a conference, socialist conference, and these people were making all these ridiculous statements. I said, I want to know, I said, I'm a communist. I want to know, where are the socialists in this group? Where are the communists in this group? And Cornell says, I'm a Christian. So after that, I said, oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. But then I reminded him, you know why they killed Christ, don't you? Running the moneylenders out the temple is not health. But anyway, that's the problem. A lot of these people feel that the Black Liberation Movement was a means of getting them into an Ivy League college. You know, the idea that it was to try to change the very nature of the United States is lost on them, you know, because they're perfectly comfortable in this thing. And that's why if you looked at that book that Marable wrote about Malcolm, on the back of the book, the three people pushing the book were Cornel West, Skip Gates, and Michael Eric Dyson. You know what I mean? Now, if you want a representation of that Buppy Ivy League mentality, there they go, right there, you see. And unfortunately, Marable fell into that kind of fake analysis. See, what their analysis is that the left, in quotes, the Democratic Socialists, even the CP today, the Trotskyists, are more progressive than, I said, no. The Black Liberation Movement had the most powerful effect on America. Not the CP, not the Democratic Socialists, not the Trotskyites, but even Elijah Muhammad, as backward as you might think they were, and Malcolm and all these Black liberation groups, the Panthers, they're the ones that brought in Obama. It wasn't you all,
Right.
see? But if you don't understand that, if you're going to belittle them because they're not formally socialists, then you don't even read Lenin. Because if you read Lenin said we don't measure the struggle against imperialism by their formal commitment to democracy, but by the effect they have in beating imperialism. So if you haven't read Lenin, don't talk to me about the left. You know what I mean? So that's the problem. You have people who masquerade under some form of social democracy, pretending they're on the left, but really just dribbling the ball inside regular capitalist American philosophy.
Right. When you look back at all of the contributions that you have made as a writer, a playwright, music critic, cultural critic, When you look back, how do you see the peaks and valleys of your own contribution? What?
Well, you have to. I just wrote a play about Du Bois called "The Most Dangerous Man in America." That's what the FBI call him, the most dangerous man in America. The man is 82 years old. He's got a cane. And then he explains what they have done to him. When they indicted him as an agent of a foreign power for talking about peace, for condemning the hydrogen atom bomb. You understand? They indicted him as an agent of a foreign power at 82 years old. And he explained that once that happened, the publishers that sought his writing no longer did that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He was never. Then they began to stop his speaking engagements. He said, "I, who was a man that every Negro in the United States wanted, one time became, a pariah." You see, so I could understand that. I could see that. So yeah, that's what they will do. If you do something that the powers that be don't like, they make you invisible. So even though Du Bois won that case, and that was the first case against McCarthyism, his case, he won that. He had Vito Marcantonio as his attorney, the last communist in the Congress. But even though he won that case, at the end he said, "Now the little children will no longer see my name." And that was accurate. And that's what they do to you. You can write what you want to and say what you think needs to be said, but in the end, they'll pay you back.
Have they done that to you?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just money-wise, last year, I lost $16,000 in terms of, speaking and stuff like that. So it's clear. Then some other places we went to Princeton, and they said, "Well, this is going to be hard for us to have you at Princeton because we have to spend an extra $10,000 for security." Like people got to come up and shoot me, But it's a normal thing, man. You have to. I mean, it's normal. It's not normal. It's abnormal, but it's normal if you understand what you are doing and who the people you are opposing.
Right.
People always running up to me, "Don't you ever play? Didn't you ever play on Broadway? Why should I ever play on Broadway?" I mean, you think that people want somebody to come up and say, "You need to die," and then let's put this play on Broadway. You need to die. No, they're not going to do that. So it's a choice. You have to make that choice. That's all. You make that choice and you have to live with it.
What are the things that you're working on? What projects are you working on now?
Well, the play that on Du Bois, I just finished that 2 weeks ago, and that took up my time for the last few months. But I've got there's a book called Revolutionary Art for Cultural Revolution, Razor, that I've been waiting for 2 years from Third World Press. I don't know what he's doing. He sent me 2 sets of proof. I marked both of them. Still no book. And we're doing things. We have a project in Newark called Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District. That's an old district in Newark where the abolitionists lived and used to preach against slavery. And right next to that was the music, the Black Music Center. So we've sort of annexed that area. We're building houses down there, and for the last 5 years, we've had a big music festival. As a matter of fact, it's coming up again in the next month. And we're organizing a tribute to James Moody, who's a Newark musician. And tomorrow, we're having a celebration for Juneteenth. The day when word that slavery was over reached Texas, which is 3 years later. 3 years later. So we're having that tomorrow, which should be interesting and important. But that's we just try to do things now to support Raz and his struggle, because as it would turn out, he's the most progressive person on the city council, so he's always involved in struggling against these backward forces. Because, politics, as you well know, for some people is nothing but a game.
Right.
So it's not about advancing anything about consciousness. So that's, we have to do.
Will we have the opportunity perhaps to raise money for Roz for mayor of Newark?
People keep asking me that. So we gotta wait, you gotta wait, we gotta wait, we gotta wait. No, don't worry about it. But his day will come. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. It's just something that is obvious to everybody, but we just have to wait till it matures.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to go out too soon, because remember, when Raz got out of college, he ran for mayor.
Right. I remember. Right away.
Right away. He was out of college 3 months. So you got to give it time, But he's only 41. He's got a long time.
And he's got an increasing political base that he's building.
Absolutely.
And that's what has to happen.
No, when he does that, we will definitely be ready.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not an if. It's a win.
It's a win. Well, Pittsburgh is always glad to have you back.
Thank you very much.